saws. But he's putting it out there in a newspaper. So he was a man that learnt to take to his heels. And so that's how he came to cross the border into Canada. And when things got too hot in Canada and America, he came over to Great Britain. And he did the same thing there. But he was a very odd man. He was known to have specimens of uterus in jars that he would show people after his meal. He was said to have a sexually transmitted disease that no longer made him a man. And he claims to have been married once to a woman. That's not clear that he ever was married, but he said, I blame her. It's her fault, and it's what gave him this dreadful hatred of women. So, Tumblety, he's an international figure, and after the crimes of Jack the Ripper, which I think he's responsible for, but as we all know, there were many other suspects, but I think, as Inspector Little of Child of Special Branch said, I think he's very likely. It all got a bit hot for Tumblety, and he got arrested for indecency in a toilet in London. And he was in police custody. They bailed him, and when he got bail, he fled, and he fled back to America. And if you look in American newspapers, papers like the New York World, they make no bones about it. They're naming him. The suspect for Jack the Ripper is back in America. They would announce Jack the Ripper and the name Tumblety in the same headlines. Make no mistake about it.
Now, was there any, when he got back in the United States, was there any murders that were very similar to what was happening in Great Britain?
This is an intriguing area. Now, there are some, again, these look like there are attacks and murders where there are cuts to the throat. There's a particular prostitute murder in New York that looks like it may well have been the work of Francis Tumblety or Jack the Ripper. But there is not a continuous stream of murders that are detected in the States. I think Tumblety was frightened, and speaking to respected criminal profilers and looking at criminal textbooks as well, I've asked them, can a serial killer just stop? And if you look at them, there is a number of cases in America where they do indeed stop for a while. That's why in some cases they think that the person that's committed the crimes has ended up in prison or is out of the country. But no, they can get frightened. They can kind of shake it off. But then again, they can always start the crimes again. But I think it all got too hot for Tumblety, and I think he was a wily enough fox to stop that. But whether he committed murder by poison or other killing methods, we don't know. I think he frightened himself. He managed to commit this ultimate destruction of a woman in the murder of Mary Kelly. And I think that more or less sated or shook him with the horror of what he did.
Very, very interesting. Now, James, out there, you got a question or two to ask Neil.
Yeah, Neil, what's your theory on the H.H. Holmes being Jack the Ripper?
Well, thank you, James, and I think that's it's a good suspect, because the man, he fits a profile. He is a serial killer. But for my money, does he have that kind of on-the-streets killer instinct that you see manifest in the crimes of Jack the Ripper? And for me, he doesn't seem to have that. He creates this murder house where he can observe the killings. He can take his time to watch these murders. He can methodically create devices that will kill others. if you think about it in a way you would study from a criminal profiling point of view, for my money, I don't think he quite fits the profile. But as we all know, murderers of that nature, they can change, they can metamorphose. So who knows? Maybe he is Jack the Ripper.
Okay. And let me ask you this. Who, in your opinion, out of all the suspects, do you believe it was the Ripper?
I think the most likely suspect, for my money, is Francis Tumblety. And why I think it is Francis Tumblety is because he fits the profile in that he had an absolute hatred of women. He had a sexual disease that is known by even modern medical understanding can affect the brain and cause a person to react in this way. It's a very, very rare condition, but my God, it can cause it. If the person's not medicated, that it can lead to that. He was known to have this collection of uterus. There were body parts, including uterus, taken away from the victims of Jack the Ripper. He was in the right places at the right time. The profile is right. So that's why I think, for my money, Jack the Ripper, the prime suspect, is Francis Tumblety.
And what was his final outcome? How did he die, or whatever happened to him?
Tumblety backed off from the sort of spotlight as best he could. His reputation as the suspect for Jack the Ripper was repeated in newspapers and magazines for many years afterwards. But he died of his, it's probably of his disease. That's what got the best of him, or the worst of him, in the end, in the early 20th century. And he's buried in the family Tumblety tomb in the cemetery of Holy Sepulchre, Rochester, New York.
Oh, wow.
And he died a very wealthy man. But here is a twist for all of you that may intrigue you. When Annie Chapman's body was found, the second victim of the canonical fight, the Ambury Street horror, she was known to wear 2 brass rings on her little finger, and they were not discovered. Methodically, items from her pockets were laid at her feet at the murder scene. Quite incredible. But they never found the rings. When Francis Tumblety died, he left a lot of money. Diamond rings, he had an expensive watch and chain, and amongst all of his expensive effects, well, you know that murderers do take trophies. And amongst all of those effects were 2 cheap brass rings.
Oh, wow. Dead giveaway right there. Now, Neil, our time is almost up. I want you to tell the people how they can find you, your website, and where they can find your books. And also, do you want to come back on like mid-February? I want to talk about, well, a lot of people wanted to hear about Dracula Secrets tonight. If you want to come on and talk about that.
I would be delighted to join you to tell you more about the Dracula Secrets, the story of Dracula, how Bram Stoker created the most infamous vampire in history, and the connections that there are between Dracula and Jack the Ripper. Not spurious material. This has been over nigh on 30 years of my life spent researching the story of Bram Stoker and how he created the story of Dracula.
Great.
I don't have a big old website. If people really want to, they can come along and find me on Facebook, be a Facebook friend, and see some of the talks and things I get up to here in Great Britain. But the best thing I would say to you, look, get hold of my book. You can get it via Amazon and get it's called The Dracula Secrets. It's all about Dracula, Jack the Ripper, the London of the 1880s, fascinating characters, Tumblety, of course. It's published by the History Press, and if you're very lucky, you may still be able to find a hardback out there. It's been out since 2012, so look out for it, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And I would like to say thank you to everyone that's listened, the callers that have called in, and I send all my very best to the truckers out there. Keep them rolling, gentlemen and ladies.
Well, Neil, thank you. I will get a hold of you tomorrow. We'll set up another date. I have you back on. I'll tell you one thing. My emails have gone crazy tonight. So I just want to say you're a great guest. And you know what? You answered a lot of questions. You know, as a kid, when I was a kid, I should say, many moons ago, because I'm 68 now, I heard all these stories about Jack the Ripper. Well, you know what? They were all false. Pretty much everything I heard. What you said tonight clarified a lot of Jack the Ripper and what he did. And I want to thank you for, telling the listeners, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there the same way. They didn't actually know what happened. Anyway, I want to thank you for being up so late, because I know it's probably, about 5 o'clock in the morning there?
It is, but it's been a pleasure. It really has.
My friend, you take care.
Thank you very much, Gary. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Great guest tonight.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Love it.
Yeah. So I learned a lot about Jack the Ripper.
I did, too, and he answered some of my questions that, about some of the theories that's been going around and I've read about and researched. So, I love that.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, our show is going to wrap up a half an hour early tonight. And sorry, but, I have a commitment I have to deal with. I just want to say, I really enjoy all you guys that listen to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Especially the truckers out there. You have made the show just grow leaps and bounds. And we're trying our best to be a little bit different than a lot of paranormal talk shows. We got the, Earth News at the top of the hour. And then on Thursdays, we have Ryan coming on giving us UFO reports, the latest reports. We have the top guest out there in ufology and the paranormal. And we're going to continue bringing you great guests. We got some super great guests coming up, and I'm just surprised that the quality of the guests we have. And I guarantee you, we're going to continue bringing you the best in the paranormal. So what do you think about that, James?
Absolutely. I'm all excited for it, especially some of the topics we need to touch on more, and we're going to, like time travel and cryptids and UFOs and abductions, of course, and and even having Neil come back and talking about Dracula. I'm looking forward to that also.
Oh yeah, Neil's our story. I tell you what, very great guest. I mean, you can certainly tell the guy has done massive research on Jack the Ripper. I didn't even know about the kidney in a box, the letter, a lot of the things that was being done to these victims. Horrible at the crime. And who knows, maybe there was more victims, but they didn't tie it into Jack the Ripper, because it could have maybe happened prior to when he started getting really, doing the bizarre murders. Anyway, till Monday, everybody have a great weekend. Stay out of trouble. Check out our website. It'll be updated totally tomorrow at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Well, from my compound to you, have a great one, and we'll catch you Monday.
Bye-bye.
You and I